Hi, I'm Chloé Plattner, and you're listening to Model Philosopher.
Hello, NHIO. It's the web shop you need to know.
The web shop everybody needs to know. NHIO, it's the web shop.
Web shop you need to know. Tools, decals, files, and much more. Tools and decals, files, and much more. So don't lose time and visit the store. Visit the store. NHIO, NHIO.
NHIO.
Spend $50 or if you like even more to enjoy free shipping, free gift of your choice. To enjoy free shipping and free gift of your choice.
Free gift of your choice. NHIO, NHIO, NHIO.
Hi, my name is Chris Meddings and welcome to The Model Philosopher. In this episode, I will be talking to Chloé Plattner about perfectionism and precision in scale modelling. Before we get into this interview, I would like to thank our sponsors, Anish Models at anish.io and Scale Model Challenge. A few times now, I have told you about why I think Scale Model Challenge is the best model show in the world, and why I have been supporting and attending Scale Model Challenge for around 15 years. But this time, I'd like to talk to you about what Scale Model Challenge gives to model businesses. If you're a model business, you should be trading at Scale Model Challenge. Speaking from experience as a trader there for many years, it gives model and miniature businesses an unparalleled opportunity to meet and engage with an audience that is serious about this hobby and looking for new and interesting products, not just the latest or cheapest kits. It also gives you a great chance to meet and network with businesses from around the world, making new connections and friendships in the hobby trade. But to take these opportunities, you have to be there. Last Friday, Scale Model Challenge opened bookings for trade space at the show, and it is already 94% booked. So don't hang about. Book your space at the best show in Europe right now by heading to scalemodelchallenge.com/trade. If you're travelling as a modeller, put the 1st of May in your diary right now. This is the date where you can book your tickets for the show and hotel rooms for show visitors. And don't forget, rooms book up really fast. Back to today's interview. Chloé Plattner is based in Vienna, where she makes mainly aircraft and maritime models. Formerly, Chloé worked professionally as an architect and has her own small model company, Wiener Modelbau Manufaktur, which you can find at wmm.at. As Chloé says in the interview, she now mostly focuses on modelling for her own satisfaction as she produces stunning, meticulously detailed models constructed to the highest standards and finished in the same exacting level. I've praised Chloé before for her incredible attention to detail in presentation, often presenting her models with miniature manuals or beautiful fabrics or in other visually striking and artistically arranged ways. But to focus on that almost feels like I'm ignoring her incredible model making work. So in this interview, that's what we focus on, her models, and the pursuit of exactitude that runs through them. Welcome, Chloé Plattner, to The Model Philosopher.
Welcome, Chris.
Now, fans of the previous podcast I used to do with Tracy Hancock and Will Patterson, the Sprue Cutters Union, will know we interviewed Chloé a while ago about your modelling and about your background in modelling. But for those that are unfamiliar with your work, can you tell us a bit about yourself, what you make?
So I do, in the main thing, unusual modelings they are depending from design. That's my approach to modeling. It's not making a special area or a special thing in technical things aspects. I do airplanes, I do ships, I do buildings, and I do vehicles in any way. I do spaceships. So all kind of technical things. And now I'm moving to figure sculpting as well. But my main target is on the design of the thing. That comes from my profession as architect, I think. And this is the biggest intention. For example, I love the area with ship modeling if they tend from sailing ships to steamships, so they don't know what we really in fact are. So that's my main focus on that. The same is with the upcoming aircraft. So you have many of different designs in the early days, in the 30s, about with all these erase planes, and then after the war with these amazing technical developments like these X-free stiletto, for instance, or these things.
There's always that interesting period when there's a new technology where people don't quite know the rules of designing it, where the engineering is so new. Yeah.
That's the thing what's fascinating me, because as they don't know exact the rules about this, so they feel in one way free with going to new frontiers in the development of things. They try out something, and you see these tries, and they often fail. So, but they look good in some way.
Yeah. At the very least, they look interesting.
Yes, interesting.
Yeah.
But I think they look good. If for example, some of these race planes, they look amazingly good, and
They
they
look
fail
beautiful.
from engine failures or not the adequate fuel consumption and burning and little mishaps, in fact. But sadly, they failed. Yes.
Do you think it's your background in architecture that makes your work so precise? Do you think it's from working with drawings and from having to be very clear about your design for others to interpret?
Yes, in fact, it comes from this profession. I started with we had a school in Austria about aerodynamics, and it's for aeronautic engineering. And I finished this school, and then I moved to architecture because I always wanted, as a young girl, I wanted to become a sculptress. But my parents refused this because they said you have to learn something serious, not going to arts. Yes,
That's not a real job.
yes. Let's train for a real job, and I didn't want to do that. So for me, the best combination of arts and technique, because I'm also interested in technical terms, was architecture in that time. So I studied for architecture, and I was schooled and educated in thinking and then bring my ideas to paper. That means make drawings, and they go to the model and then go to the real thing. That was the way in these days. In nowadays, you sit on a computer and make everything on the screen and the computer, and then you feed a 3D printer. It's almost the same in building production now. It's there are some 3D printers, but not the big ones. So you have this interruption in between with the usual devices from building sites. But for me, it was also a very important thing to work with drawings and models in the same thing, to develop in the same stage to develop something. Yes, for instance, we made a drawing, we made a design of a construction part or an overall this layout of a building. Then I made a very simple model with clay or something, put some lights on it with shadows, take a picture in black and white, put it on the Xerox machine, and then go with transparent paper and redesign it and draw again. So this was the a very traditional kind of working in design. And so all my addiction to modeling starts with that, in fact. And I made some very, well, I don't think so, but other thought so, very nice architecture models, and won some prizes with them. And this was more and more brought me to modeling things. And now, as I'm retired, I work on the models I wanted to do all the time.
Did you enjoy the modeling more than the drawing?
Yes, because the real thing was always, the drawing was always a part of the way to get on the way to get to the real thing. So also, like a sculptor's, the drawing is a sketch, is an idea, helps you a little bit. It's a technical drawing, yeah? And the usage of a technical drawing is to provide information for the real 3D thing.
Mm.
And the drawing is also important for me, but the more important is the model. And I'm a very lousy drawer, and in my conceptual thing, I do a lot of things on the real model. So there are a lot of failures in the model, in fact, yes. And I redo and redo and redo them until I'm fine with the result.
There's a lot of precision in your work, something I've always really admired about it. That
Do you
everything
think
is,
so?
I think so. I think everything is where it should be. That there's no sort of vagueness. Because when I'm scratch building, one of the things I like about scratch building as opposed to 3D design, for instance, is when I'm doing 3D, is when I'm in Fusion drawing something, I have to get it exactly where it's supposed to be. Otherwise, when you print it, it will be a mess. But one thing I always enjoy with scratch building, if something's in slightly the wrong place, I can kind of fudge it a bit with a bit of sanding and a bit of filling and a bit of, then you can kind of make it work. And it's more like sculpting than it is like drawing, whereas CAD is
Exactly.
more like drawing. But with your work, I always feel like you think about it a lot before you do something, and then you get it exactly where it's supposed to be. Is that something you recognize? Do you think precision is important to you?
Yes. In the basic, it's very important for me, because I always try to be as accurate or precise as possible. Of course, I never can gain the perfect result, but I try to get as close to the real thing in miniature as it will be possible with my materials and with my skills. And it's always a process. It's a way to get there. The final thing is my eyes, my skills, my hands, my tools. And then I have to make something that looks as close. Okay, it seems to be precise, yes, but it's not precise in a way that's the real thing, because you can do the real thing in 1 to 350 scale, because the rivet is that small that nobody will see it. And that's also the problem, I think, with some 3D printing. They are in some kind, I got some ship models in 1 to 700 scale, and it's almost impossible to take the parts with tweezers, and they break immediately if you look only at them. Yes, because they are that tiny, and if you put even the slightest drop of paint on it, it's what the detail has gone. Yes.
It's a blob, yeah.
Yes, and that's a problem. So I really have a favor for some scales, and in particular scales, you can be very precise, I think, because the eye and the brain of the viewer makes the thing complete. So you can go very close. For example, ships in 1 to 350 scale is perfect, because they are a pretty good combination between color and the detail. You can be very, very accurate and very close to the original thing. And with some little tricks, you can give the viewer or the visitor the impression of an shallow ship body. You know what I mean? And this makes the feeling that's totally sharp and precise. For example, if you do some simple things like sun sails, usually if you make sun sails on a ship, every material before I worked, they are too clumsy, and even the thinnest paper is too thick to obtain a fabric in 1 to 350 scale. And I learned that from Jim Bauman. I started to try with white glue and make a very thin film between two strips of stretched sprue or something like that. And this becomes extremely thin and has some tension, and it looks accurate as fabric.
You're just using the surface tension of the glue.
Yes,
to span between the
exactly.
the stretch sprue. Yeah,
the surface span, and it's a very tricky thing because if you have many to make many rows or many layers of fabric in a row, and if only one fails, you have to redo the complete thing and start from the beginning. And I think this is the way to go to become a perfect model, is to do them again and again and again and again, the same thing. I throw away 10 failed parts for having one good.
I think this is something people don't appreciate. People that just build out of the box about scratch building or about super detailing or whatever you want to call it. The amount of they see the finished model and think, "Wow, that's incredible." They don't see the amount of failures that get thrown away in the attempt.
I have a big understanding for that, because sometimes I have the same feelings. But in fact, I was thinking a lot now in the last months about what do I want to do with modeling, or what's the important thing with modeling with me. And it's not the finished model. It's the time I spend working on a detail, and it's like a journey with myself and my skills and the material. And I don't know where this journey leads. For example, with this octopus, it's a new material. I had just an idea about the animal. I studied a lot about the animal, but how this particular animal would look like, I had no idea in the beginning. So if sculpting and working on that, listening to good music, drinking a glass of red wine and something like that, and it takes me, it's a kind of flow. Yes, I work for hours and I don't feel the time. And exactly this process is what makes me happy in the final of the day, because you have a good feeling in that time. You forget totally about what's around in the world, about time and everything.
I think in a way, when you get into that sort of flow and when you don't know, like you say, you don't think about anything outside of what you're doing, it's almost like that's where we're most ourselves, because there's no other concerns at all. You can just
Yes,
be and make things and enjoy making them.
exactly. And that's the joy of modeling, and it's a real lust to get this feeling again and again and again. So I
It's like a
really,
drug, isn't it?
yes, it's a
Yeah,
kind of a drug. Yes,
yeah. You have to have more of it.
but it's harmless in a way. Yes, it doesn't harm you in any case. It's a good thing, because it opens your mind, I think, and it makes you interested on many terms. You have always to improve your skills. Yes, and with aging, older people get some kinds of stupid. They forget everything, and I feel that myself. But with this process, always to improve myself and becoming more skilled and better and better and better and better, it trains my hands and my brain in the same way. Of course, sometimes it's frustrating because things don't work as I want to, and this happens pretty often. But if I keep on doing them, finally they work, and this is very satisfying, the feeling. If finally, and there's a knowledge, and this knowledge becomes clear and clear. If I keep on doing the things, I have the knowledge that finally they will work. Even if I fail many times on the way to that, but finally it will work.
It's interesting you talk about the repetition, that you know what you will accept and you have the idea that you can do better. Do you think there's a certain amount of perfectionism in that?
Yes, because if you look to sports or something similar, to become perfect in any way what you're doing, you have to repeat and repeat and repeat and train on the same thing many times. I don't know exactly, but for me, it's the secret behind getting perfect in any kind what you're doing. You have to repeat that what you do, and not just do it one times and then happy and then move to the other thing. So some people are very talented if they do things one time and it seems to be perfect, but I don't think so. I think it's the same if with cooking and music or whatever you will. If you don't try to play the piano and repeat things and repeat and repeat and repeat, you will not become a good pianist or something like that.
There's
And
no
I think
perfection without repetition.
no. I think that's the key for perfection, is to repeat things and keep steadily working on things again and again and again until they are satisfying with quality and your aspect of perfection and what you really want to have.
Do you think perfect is attainable, though, in modelling?
No, but I don't think that the perfection at itself is a goal to run for. But becoming as perfect as possible, that's a goal. And in modeling, yes, there are some models around I really admire, but they are perfect in different ways. So there's not only one way of perfection. Perfection is the word. It's perfection for me is the end of the thing. And as we are human beings, we will never reach the end of the thing, but we try to come as close as possible to the end of the thing. Was it
So
clear what I said? Or
So the pursuit of perfection is the
yes,
is the thing. Yeah.
yes. It's for me. It's absolutely the thing.
Do you think, though, there's a negative side to that? Do you think that can be discouraging or disheartening?
Yes, the negative thing is if you only run for perfection in models and forget about the whole thing, how the presentation is, what you want to say in general about a model. You never should lose the overall aspect, and there are many more things that are very important, like the composition, like the colors, and the personal feeling, the your own personal approach to a model. That's way more, or not way more. It's as important as to be as perfect as possible. So you have always to face many things. It's not make a part as precise as possible, maybe, or as perfect as possible. It's only a part. Yes, it may be perfect, but it doesn't say anything about the whole model. Yes.
Earlier, you mentioned looking at a 1/350 scale ship and getting the feeling from it, the viewer getting the feeling from it. What is that feeling that you're looking for?
I had guests yesterday, and they have been looking at one of my models, and one of them have said, I can look at this ship for hours and hours and hours and always detect something new. And then it's even it's just a ship, there are some figures on it and many details, some open doors and little things. And if you give people who look at a model the feeling that there is something to explore on the ship, yes, you find out things and details and unexpected things, like a little gun on the ship for salutes, or some people sitting around and talking with each others in a corner of a ship, and many of these tiny details, they make the thing complete, and telling a story in a technical piece like a ship. So just build a ship as accurate as it's possible. I think it's kind of boring. So you have always to put some of these things into it, telling a story about the ship, what's happening on that, or comparing the sizes of the things. If you put some tiny little figures on that, so you see, oh, that's a big ship. You get the feeling, even if a model it's a big ship, if you compare it to the tiny figures they are working on them, or stepping on the stairs or something like that. And the same thing is with the colors. So it's not that important that you meet the accurate color. Of course, you have a guidance of the knowledge what colors have been used in that area, and it shouldn't be wrong at that time. But the more important thing is that the colors are in a good combination to each other, that they work with each other, that they are blended with others, so that the thing comes or gives you the impression of being something real.
I think the thing people sometimes miss with ship models is they look, or even not when they're making them, but perhaps when they're looking at them, they look at the line of the ship, especially on a full hull. It's very nice to look at the curve and the compound curves and the lines.
Exactly, yes.
And then also, if it's a warship, people look at the guns. A lot of people like to model battleships because they like big guns and turrets.
Yes.
But what they forget is a ship is a home, even a small town, because
Yes.
it's a self-contained community.
Absolutely. Yes.
That moves on water, and it might be at sea for weeks or months, and it has its own sort of ecology, and it's quite hard to get that into a model.
Yes, I try to do that. So it's not even easy. I'm working on a harbor scenery with the old battleship, with a Chinese battleship, and I want to display this ship in the middle of many supporting ships, like vegetable supporting, and on one side of the ship they are doing the coaling process. It's all dirty and black. On the other side they have the laundry on the lines and everything. So and the idea was, I saw a picture of a ship like this, and it was like a castle in a city with all the marketplaces around. And for me, it's also, as you said, a ship is like a small city. And if you compare the big battleships, they have 4,000 people on them, or 2.5, yes, and it's like a small city, and they have everything on board. And in the models, they often look only like machines, and for, yes, I don't like the big guns, but I have a big understanding for the boys who like the big guns. And I'm not that much addicted to battleships, to modern battleships, because they are all over grey.
You and I both like the same period, I think, sort of 1870, 1880, 1890, the early metal steam ships.
Yes, and they are colorful. They look strange with their wide designs, and there was a lot of ideas around these ships. Not they look like a Jules Verne story, for instance. Yes, and and they open your mind for some fantasy. Yes, and it's in the
And there
moment.
was a huge variety of design, like you were saying earlier,
Yes,
because
a huge variety, and for example, the modern submarines. Yes, they are from the design. They are very interesting, but I don't know on which show. It was not far away. There was a guy who had a huge collection in the same scale. It was amazing of many modern submarines.
yeah,
But
they're all black tubes.
yes, exactly. It
Yeah.
it, it was. He did a lot of work, and they had been made amazingly clean and good and accurate and everything, but as you said, a collection of black tubes. Yes.
Not like Holland boats or
No.
the early Russian submarines or the early
Yes.
French submarines.
Or steam submarines, as
Yeah,
these funniest things, but it's okay. Yes, everybody
yeah.
should be happy. That's the same with some airplanes. Yes, they look, or many of them look like this, have the same appearance for me. And there are some guys out. I would like to mention, even if I'm not that involved with World War I airplanes, World War II airplanes, but I don't know if you know him. It's a German guy. It's Benedikt Walliser. He is doing a different display with his 1/244 scale airplanes, and he displayed Japanese. I think it have been Zero's fighter planes, and he put them in a row of 4 or 5 planes in different movements, put on a very thin stick of
Oh, I
wire.
think I saw this. Yeah,
Yes, and it was looking amazingly, and in the moment, and these things become dynamic, and you had a feeling about what an airplane is. Yes, in that
yes,
time.
which is very hard to do with model airplanes.
Yes, it's very hard, and he did it. So, and I'm very fascinated from his work, and he's doing them again and again and again, and doing in different ways, and he gives a completely different approach how an airplane can look like. What I really don't like, if you put an airplane on its wheels on a big plate and put it down, you can build it as accurate as you want, but usually most of the airplanes look not that good if they are placed on the button on their wheels. Yes, they look a little bit like lame ducks or something like that.
They're not designed to sit there on the wheels, are they? I
No.
mean, the classic one is the BF 109. It looks positively funny,
Yes.
humorous on its
Yes,
funny
with
little
these little
legs.
legs
Yeah,
and sticking out and
it looks like the ugly duckling waddling out of the water.
yes. And I had the same problem with my Horton. I'm very addicted to the Horton designs and these all-wing airplanes. And if you put a Horton on its wheels with this big clumsy front wheel, it looks. There's nothing elegant in this airplane in the moment. Yes. And if you retract the wheel and show this clean surface, and it looks tremendously elegant and for what it was designed to fly fast, and it looks fast. So for me, the big thing is also and I think it's also kind of perfection to make to give the models the environment they should have had, or what they should look like. An airplane, for example, should look like fast and elegant and in the air, for example.
Do you think the feeling that goes with it is is one of the things that makes it perfect? That if it's not there, then that's a big thing missing from it.
Yes, I think it's a big thing that the viewer of a model should get the feeling about the things. There are many people around who can do these things. For example, there have been one of my admired modeler is Stefano Marchetti. I don't know if I think you
Yeah,
know
yeah,
him.
yeah.
He was winning Best of Show in Telford every year he took part, and he
He's gone
made
very
this.
quiet lately. I haven't seen him for a long time.
Yes, I meet him several times, but he's only traveling in Italy because he has some problems. And but even with he was only displaying one atom there, one machine.
Yeah.
But with this machine, there was also in this machine was a story behind. Yes, it was that interesting and that fascinating and left so many ideas open, and it was not expressed so that it sucks you into the model if you looked at it. Yes, and that was amazing. By the way, it was completely fascinating to scratch building something that accurate in that precise thing.
I mean, his mono wheel was amazing. It was really nice. But
Yes,
the
the
one
the
that,
big one. I yes,
yeah, I think the one that was really challenging, though, that he, like you were saying, that he scratch built it and it was so precise, was the hover Ferrari,
yes,
because the lines and the shapes of that were absolutely perfect and the symmetry was perfect. It was really very beautiful.
yes. His work is very brilliant, and he's a very kind guy, and I'm happy to call him a friend of mine. And I think this is a kind of perfection I would like to obtain in modeling, and that could be admired because it's perfection in many ways, in design, in execution, in painting, in ideas, in storytelling, in every aspect. So it's I think it's very important to be, and this makes modeling difficult. It's not only one thing you have to be good in, perfect in. It's not enough if you're good in painting, for example. It's also important you have to be good in detailing, in craft skills, in ideas, in combining things, having an idea about the whole thing. And there are many skills required for a perfect model. Many.
What do you think makes a perfect model?
As I said before, everything together in a very kindly composed way. So not one thing should stick out from a model. So it should be in a kind of harmony.
But which are the elements that you're looking for? So the painting and the building and the storytelling. What
Yes,
kind of elements are we looking
for me, one there's a what I'm always saying is you can fail with a model until the finish, because if you put one glob or the one dot of color on it and it's the wrong thing, you can ruin the whole piece. Or with the rigging for ship, if you're doing the wrong thing and there's too much tension on the mast and the mast is wrapping, and you can start from the beginning almost. So I think it's very important to have all these things together, because there's a big difference with modeling and sculpture painting or figure painting. I totally admire these perfect painters, but they just paint. For me, it's also important to make the figure and the whole model. And in that way, you have to paint during the building process, because you never ever can build a model and then paint it finally. Oh, the military vehicle modelers, they are doing that. I don't understand how they can do that. But
I used to do that when I was building armor.
really,
Um, but once I started building ships, I build everything now in sub assemblies because the only way to
yes,
properly paint it is to paint it before you finish assembling it, really.
Absolutely. So, and these are the very important things. So there's together. Yes, the color, the paintwork is a very, very important. I think it's one of the most important things, even with ordnance models, not only with the figures. Because I had a friend long times ago, and he built World War One airplanes. These old Revell kits in 1:77 scale.
Brave.
Yes, very
Yeah.
brave. And he called himself a junk modeler, and he was a designer for game design, and he studied arts and fine arts, and he was very good in painting the models. And if you saw his models, and they have been painted that accurate, they had this shadow of the sagging wings between the rib space in 1:72 scale, and he worked with different paints like airbrush inks and these things. And it was amazing what he did with these clumsy kits, you know. And so it's not only the material and the perfection in the hardware, I would say. It's also the software, like the paintwork on it. Yes, you can improve even a bad model with the color, or you can ruin an extremely good model with a bad paintwork. If you look at these amazing ship modeling kits, they are around in the moment. I have sometimes the thinking the only difference is in paintwork, because the hardware is pretty. You can do it better in any case.
Yeah. I think it's always interesting when people say that they prefer building or prefer painting, because I think really you have to. The more I model, the less I see a distinction. That it's all just part of modeling,
Yes,
and that you have to constantly improve on both.
yes. It's both, and they are both as important, because if it's a little bit difficult to explain. For example, on this final mooring of the steam drifter I did recently, one of the important thing was how to provide the broken glasses in 1:144 scale of the windows. In the beginning, I thought, okay, the easiest way is to leave them out, and no glass in there. And I looked on it and looked at it, and it looked boring. You know, it was not the real thing, because there was a glass inside. And then I tried out things, and it was not satisfying. And then was it was a box from some chocolates, and by accident I found out this was, if you don't touch it slightly, it breaks in a very, very thin way. And this was the thing. I took this and I tried out, and it worked perfectly for the broken glass. And it's only a small detail, but it's very important for nobody will see it on the first view on the model. But if you look closer, you get the feeling, and it makes a difference between an old ship and a new one, and
between a model and something that looks like has the feeling of the real thing.
yes, and it comes pretty close. And it was, yes, and I was walking around with big headaches how to obtain the glasses.
What do you do when you have a challenge that you can't find a way, can't work out a way to overcome?
I leave it, and I have many times with modeling, and I always get to a point on a model where I have this challenge, and I don't know how to proceed with the particular piece. And in that case, that's the reason why I do many models at the same times, because I always come to that point. And I'm very happy that my brain is still working in the meantime and thinking about solution, how to obtain this particular problem. It needs sometimes months, weeks, sometimes years, but finally always there is an idea how it could go, or look at other models or speak with other models, and finally there was always a solution to work on this, or to proceed on these particular problems. The broken glass was an example for that. Or with these cigar ships now, I was a long time thinking before I began with the ship how to provide these tiny little propellers, yes, and they made a lot of headaches. Then there was an idea, and it was William with his jig of the spoke wheels. He brought me, hey, let's do a jig. And the first jig was very simple, and then it was on a bigger scale, and it worked. And then I made it in a very small scale, and finally I have them with me here. Look at these.
Wow. Yeah,
And these
tiny.
are the propellers, and they are working. Yes,
It's kind of hard to see. Send me some photos when we're finished. Do you think that's something that comes with experience and with confidence from doing a lot of scratch building of things, that you know sooner or later either your skills will catch up or a solution will present itself?
yes, that's all about experience, and there's some I don't know English, but in a kind of, not insurance is not the right word. I feel safe with the things that there will come a solution.
Yeah. You feel, just confident that
Yes,
it will
confident
work out. Yeah.
with if I work on that, there will be a solution. Yes, and sometimes they need time, and then before I ruin the model, I leave it and have a rest, have a good rest, and finally, there's always a way. Now, I have to improve my skills on figure painting. I found out with the latest show on SMC and the Italian shows, and they're amazing good figure painters. So I do want to improve my skills on figure painting, and I have to improve them, and with sculpting and all these things. I think that's the part of modeling that keeps people healthy is you have to think and you have to improve yourself always. And if you become better and better step by step, it also gives you a feel of happiness, and you feel better with that. That's a good thing of modeling.
Yeah, there's some accomplishment or achievement.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people, maybe, I don't know, but I know some people like to just build a kit, pick it up, build it,
Yes,
paint
that's
it,
okay.
finish it, and they get their accomplishment from completing kits. But for me, it's the challenge. And like you said earlier about kits that are kind of too perfect already, if I open a kit and it looks like I don't really need to do anything to it other than assemble it and paint it, I find it very hard to be enthusiastic about it.
I have a big understanding for that, because if I open the box and look at the kit and know how it works, so you have just to do it. Yes? So it's very hard to get enthusiastic about this. If I see a drawing or a photograph of a very wide design, I immediately get enthusiastic or have the idea in my mind starts working how to realize this thing.
Do you choose projects based on the subject, or do you choose them based on the challenge, or maybe a mix of both?
I chose them based on the subject usually. That's the main thing, and the challenge comes with the subjects, I think.
Well, yeah, because you keep picking subjects no one makes a kit of. So.
Yes. The Steam Drifter was a kit from George Rupton, and it was a very, very lovely kit, and I've seen it on SMC, and this was one model of the kit, but I was in contact with him on Messenger and spoke many times about his kit. And I always said, you won't be happy with me because I'm destroying the kit and doing something different out of that. But finally, I think he's pretty much happy with that.
Do you feel you have a lot to learn to get closer to a perfect model, or do you feel like it's more sort of incremental now?
Yes, learning is always big thing, and there's with every model is a lot of skills I have to improve or to learn or to start from the beginning and try out until my skills are good enough to implement them on the model. It's, I think, every scratch build model has these new challenges to find out how to solve the problem, how to fix a part, how to make it, what material to use. There's always and this is the thing of the journey I really like, is to explore some new dimensions of workmanship and to become not only good in them, to become perfect in them. Yes, and that's a really interesting thing, and it on one side it makes it difficult, but on the other side it gives you a deeper view into many things and people. If of course I do communicate a lot and speak with many people who I have the feeling who have the knowledge how to do some things. And in that case, of course, modeling is a thing you're doing with yourself alone. But around this, there's a lot of communication. So it's, yeah, I really enjoy also the community with talking people about some problems, and always with every time I find out something new or learn something new or get a new idea, or oh, I can do it that way. It happened a lot. And it's vice versa. It's not a one-way communication. For example, I do completely different things as Jean Bernard with his little tiny diorama artworks, but he gives me a lot of ideas, and I was very proud as he said I do the same thing for him. Yes. Or with Harry Arling, I never will do his cosmotronic pieces because it's something very special he is doing. But I have stolen many ideas from him, and yes, it's to improve each other is a very nice thing. Or I love to judge on competition because especially in SMC we had teams of judges. We have been 3 in our team, and there have been a lot of discussions because they all had a different standpoint from the modeling, and they have been very experienced modelers. Also, we are speaking on very high list, and we had no discussions about if this was a good model or not, but why it was a good model. And to learn about the different standpoints from a different approach of modeling, this was wonderful. It was amazing.
It's always very interesting to see how other people see models.
Yes, exactly.
And judging is probably the best way you get that, isn't it? Talking about the model
Absolutely.
between you.
That's the reason why I love judging, and I love it because it's a tremendously good school of looking at models and hearing different approaches, different standpoints, different meanings about what a model should be and how it should look like and how to do it. And it's it's fantastic. It's really really a good experience.
It's interesting talking about judging and perfection because in the sort of American IPMS standard, perfection would be mathematical perfection in a lot of ways. It would be that the wheels are
Yes.
at the same angle and the same, are perfectly balanced and the wingtips are perfectly balanced. What do you look for in a model when you're judging it? What kind of perfection are you looking for?
The first view is the overall impression a model gives me. And the funny thing I talked with many judges about, and they have all the same experience. If you run through a competition, you see the winners, I think not in the very first moment, I would say.
They usually jump out, don't they?
Yes, they jump out. I don't, I can't explain exactly why, but this is the same thing to everybody else. And we had the same experience about this. So we have been clear about the winners in the moment. Then we have been speaking about why, and the discussion was very interesting. But to find out the second or third places and make the categories behind this, it's way more difficult. And then you have to look much closer to the model and there are completely different standpoints. What's good on a model? Not the accuracy, of course, is one thing, but it's only one thing of the thing. Of course, a winner or a masterclass model, there should be not any inaccuracy you will see on the first or second view. But every model has some inaccuracies. And what I really don't like is this mathematical approach to judging from IPMS and so. I think it's so boring and it's way beyond what models can express. And yes, they might be good models, the winners there, but I don't like this kind of approach to a model. Have a list and boom, 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 putting out dots and
Is a model an artistic object for you?
not at all. There is one thing. They are there's a level of extremely good craftsmanship. That's a extremely good model. But being a piece of art there should be something more in it, something different. So to make a model, there are some models around. They are a piece of art of me, many in the last time. But it's a difference between a good model and a very good with perfect craftsmanship, very well executed with high skilled level of modeling. But to make it a piece of art is a little bit more. It has to have to make it clear. It has to have some personality, some personal expression to make it. It should speak something for itself, not being one thing of each other's. Uh, oh
The
my!
reason I ask is I think perhaps some of the confusion about how models should be looked at and judged between the IPMS system, say, or people that take that approach, and maybe more the kind of modeling that we're talking about is that theirs is an engineering exercise.
Yes, it's more on the way of craftsmanship and engineering side as on the art, making a piece of art. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Maybe models are somewhere between, though. If a model doesn't have that sort of extra feeling, it's not art. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be pure engineering. It can be something somewhere in the middle.
but also if you, that was the reason why I was talking about Stefano in the beginning, because his model on in terms of engineering, they are perfect engineered, you know what I mean? But they are also more than that, because they get a piece of art of, because they have an expression. So it's not an exclusion of engineering or craftsmanship. For me, the top of perfection of modeling should be a gathering of the artificial standpoint from fine art and sculpting, and also from the engineering standpoint. If we bring all these both things together, that could be a wonderful thing.
I mean, following on from that, why do you think we make these little things? What do you think it is about making miniature stuff that appeals to us?
This is the, I think, why we make these little things is, I can't give you a satisfying answer. I think it's just an urge. It's a passion. If I walk around in an exhibition or in a city and see some buildings or something like that, my brain always works. How can you make a miniature out of that? So I cannot explain. Some people don't understand why one can spend hours and hours and days and months with making miniatures and sitting there, and it's not that expensive, but I think it's an expression of creativeness, and also a kind of the deep feeling we human beings have of collecting something or having things for their own. For me, making models is always diving in my own little private world, and creating my own little private world, and it's only mine, and it looks like mine, and it's just my little thing. But finally it's more than that, because I also like to showcase the things and show them to other people and speak about them, and so they should go beyond the curtain, yes, before in front of the curtain. Why doing models? The answer will be easy for the architectural models, because I would like to explain something with the model and show a customer, client, an idea what I have with the model. But doing scale models or figure models, it's the same question if you ask a sculptor or a painter, why are you painting?
But this is what I find fascinating, because I was a painter years ago, before art school knocked
Really?
it out of me. Yeah, made me hate it.
Wow.
But you, I like the fact we don't really know. I like the fact it is a compulsion, and I don't know where it comes from or why,
Yes.
but it is, and I find it fascinating, really, that we choose to do these things that to people outside are
Absolutely. It's
bizarre.
really
I mean,
fascinating.
painting is different because culturally that's acceptable, but making miniature things in some parts of our culture is seen as a bit odd, and the fact we choose to do it.
Nobody knows, yes. But what I really like with doing these things is meeting that many wonderful people around the world. And most of them, yes, all of them, like me, are a little bit nerdy in some way. But there's also, even in these times with all this struggling and wars and political hatreds and everything around, if you come to a modeling show and speak with the modelers, usually it's a open-minded, very, very peaceful society of modelers. Yes? And that's what's the thing what I really like. And it's highly appreciated to go there and meet them and speak with them and have some drinks. It's wonderful. I really
I've
like
met
it.
a few modelers I really don't like, but I've not met any modelers that aren't interesting. They're always fascinating, interesting people. And I don't know if it's the hobby
Yes,
that makes it feel that way, or whether it's because you have to be, intellectually a little bit alert, a little bit creative to make models. But either way, it's great to meet so many fascinating people.
yes. If as you say, usually all of them are fascinating. I don't like all of them, of course not, because it's impossible to like everybody. Yes, but yes,
It's
but
people, right?
I think it's a good community, and I really like the community, and it's compared with others like soccer or football, or it's no not that big struggling in there. I'm not that big fan of the competitive standpoint from modeling. Of course, I like the competitions because people like to get home with a medal and a gold medal, and I'm the winner of something. I think it's a little bit a male aspect. I'm the winner,
Yeah.
but finally, what I especially enjoy on shows like SMC, for example, is this huge big showcase of amazing good modeler.
It's almost too much to take in at shows like SMC. And I think from what I've
Yes.
seen at Monte Savino for figures and some of the others as well,
Even Telford was for me was wonderful in its times, but now it's unfortunately almost impossible to get there for reasonable costs.
to be honest, the competition is a shadow of itself, really, unfortunately. There's still some really
Fortunately,
great models in it, but I know certainly for ship models, it was the place to go. It's a place where you saw a lot of really good ship models,
yes.
and there's not so many there anymore, unfortunately.
It's so sad to hear. I'm very unhappy about these things because I was there for many, many times, and it was always a good time being there, especially with my friends from there. I learned a lot of them.
You've named a lot of modelers actually while we've been talking, which I always like because it gives people listening something to go and look for and to discover new people if they don't already know them. But and this is really putting you on the spot now, so I can edit this out if you like. Which modeler do you most admire, do you think?
The most admire. I have been speaking about some of them, and they made a list because there are many, and I found out that really many of them I really admire, and I made them by listing. There was William Adair for his 144 scale, fantastic pieces and accuracy and creativeness, and by the way, he's a very, very open-minded, smart guy and very helpful. Then there is the Swiss guy Marcel Ackle, who is making these perfect touching dioramas in 1 to 50 scale, and they have such a feeling and of the environment and everything. It's also, he wrote perfect books, very high recommended. Then there is this Netherlands guy Harry Arling with his cosmotronics, a crazy guy, and I love him. And I am very happy that I pushed him into to go to the plastic model competitions, because he refused and say, "You are doing plastic models. You make them from trash, but they are plastic models. They are fantastic." And I'm following, and he gave me a lot of ideas, and I really admire his creativity and his all in all appearance. And for me, he's doing, that's a different from making accurate models. He's doing a kind of art. Yes, because his things are the same is with Marcel Akle with his dioramas. Is also, there's more than a good diorama. It's a kind of art. Then there's this fantastic ship modeler from UK, Jim Bauman. I learned over the years. I'm still in touch with him, pretty close, and all my knowledge about ship, or most of my knowledge I have from him, and he's still working. If you ever meet him with his big, clumsy hands, yes, he's working hard. It's absolutely, you can't imagine that he is doing this accurate, flimsy details in 1/270 scale.
Because he only works on 1/700, doesn't he? Very small stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
extremely small, and he's also doing, if he I follow his works on in work in progress, and he's not that accurate in the detail. You think he's not that accurate if you see it, because these are 1/700 pieces, yes, and if you see them in nature, they are absolutely sharp and crisp and precise. So that's perfect. Then I mentioned him is Jean Bernard with his amazing art pieces. For me, he's making real art
I
with
think
his
so.
dioramas, and every piece of him is very, very touching. We recently I was listening to a piece from Avo Pualina, and was immediately thinking of Jean Bernard, because it has a kind of sadness in there, and also something. I'm missing words. I really admire him, and he's a very, very smart and friendly guy. Yes,
Yeah. Very funny too.
yes, he's a deep sense of humor, and fantastic. Yes. Then there's this Netherlands guy, Robert Blocker. I like he's always pushing the threshold outside a little bit and becoming, improve the things. The self-portrait of himself in that small scale,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Yes. And he's
He showed
trying
me
and trying.
yesterday, the 1/72 self-portrait.
Yes.
Oh, you mean
It's
the painting?
yes,
Yeah,
I
the
mean
little.
the painting now.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
working on a 1/72 figure of
Yeah.
himself. Yes,
Yeah.
I saw this, and this is other things I really like, because he's doing something very creative, and also talking with him is always fun. Yes,
Yes. Yeah. Really good guy. Yeah.
Then there is this Turkish guy Karim Bibi with his
Mm.
absolutely fantastic airplanes. I lost a little bit track in last months about him, but I admire a lot of his works. Then Jose Brito from Portugal. I was judging with him on SMC, and he had a very interesting speaker about the approach of modeling.
Very smart guy.
Yes, very smart guy, and then is from Germany Christian Brewer with his 144 scale models and his ship modeling. He is fantastic. Gema Cabero from Spain. Gema is, if we meet, it's always like we have been friends forever. Yes, the one of my earliest admirable modelers was Marian van Giels. With if you and he's for me is also doing a kind of art because his all his figures and they are everything is very special he's doing. And the first work as from him I saw was in Folkestone. This was the soldiers escaping from the balloon basket, and I saw this and I fell in love with that piece because it was very tiny, very small, and absolutely dramatic. And by that way, Per Olaf Lund, fantastic. Yes, it's a Norwegian guy. He's also doing fantastic dioramas, and the whale. I think it was in every aspect. It was perfectly executed. It was the whole environment. It was dramatic. It was. This is perfection for me. Yeah. Then Tom Griegert from Germany. He's doing fantastic film with his stop motion movies, and he also brings art into the modeling or makes art out of the modeling. Yes,
Yeah.
So it's a combination of everything. Then I mentioned Stefano Marchetti with his wonderful inventions and vehicles. Then there is from USA Penny Meyer for figure painting. It's a wonderful person. I met her on World Model Expo, and we have been speaking on breakfast for hours, and it was a month. I met her for the first time personally there, and we had both the feeling that we have been friends forever. It was such an intense and warm feeling about each other, and I admire her work, of course. Then there's this Russian girl, a lady, Yulia Moshura, figure painter. If you have seen what she's doing with textures and fabrics and patterns on the fabrics, I watch her videos every evening and looking at them. How can I do this? It's fascinating. Then there is this Japanese guy, also a very expert scratch paper, Nakashima Shini.
Mm. He builds wonderful aircraft, interwar aircraft.
Big flying boat, and he is also a very enthusiastic scratch builder, and I like this guy. Then there's the American guy Mark D. Smith. Recently he refused a little bit to build new models, but he did amazing good scratch building in the beginning, and he's also an architect. Then there's Spiros Stavanetos Stromopoulos from Greek with his rotten ships. And the Austrian guy Eric Trauner, do you know him?
I don't think so.
You have to look at him and you will know what I'm speaking about. For me, he's a great artist. He's a musician. Eric Trauner. Diorama. He's making dioramas in 1:70 scale, mostly based on ethnic things. And as a blues musician, he's now building a diorama from the origin of making blues. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Then there is Peter V. Usher with his fantastic pieces. I have nothing to say. And then finally, this Polish guy Andrzej Seuber from Poland. And there are many others more. I couldn't mention all of them. If I think about Frederick Suber from Belgium.
The problem with doing a list is you always forget people, and then you feel bad later.
Yes. And I have forgotten a lot of them, but there are many, and I was wondering about so many fascinating modelers around. Yes,
Yeah.
and it's not a few of them.
What amazes me is every time I go on social media, I find someone else new who I've never heard of, who's absolutely phenomenal.
I have unfortunately, I have not that contact to the Asian scenery from China, from India, from Thailand, and so they have perfect modelers there as well. Yes.
A lot of the names on there, though, a lot of them have that feeling you were talking about earlier. There's something about their work beyond making a good model or painting it well. They all have produced things that have a feeling about them, an atmosphere.
Yes, and yes, I'm really happy to know all these people and call me a part of that community. So it's really a great happiness, and it gives you a good feeling not being alone with your nerdy hobby. And
Well, thank you very much for that. I think there's a lot of people there for people to go and look up. And also thank you
you're
so much
welcome.
for talking to me about perfection today. I will try and edit this as well as I can to make it as perfect as possible. And I hope listeners have enjoyed it. Where can they find you on the internet to look at your work?
On Facebook, I'm usually on Facebook or Instagram. You can find my work, and if you approach me on or give me a private message, I will answer everything if it's.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Chloe.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
I always enjoy talking to Chloe, and I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. Perfection, or perhaps the pursuit of perfection for me, is a key motivator in modelling. But as Chloe hints at, there are many kinds of perfection, from the engineering-based, sterile but exacting approach of building precise scale replicas of real things, to the heavily artistic and expressionistic style that takes a subject and renders it for emotional impact over fidelity to the real. In every case, there is space for perfectionism. The replica maker will seek to find ways to reduce oversized scale parts to scale thickness, to add tiny missing details, or to make plastic look exactly like metal or glass. The artistic modeler would look to deliver the clearest and most powerful emotional impact, eliminating anything that does not achieve that, even if it means removing real aspects or changing them significantly to tune the artistic impression and achieve their goal. Most modelers are somewhere in between and will consciously or subconsciously make their own decisions based on their own ideas and goals, but ultimately I think listeners to this show will recognise that desire to get as close as they possibly can to their own ideas of perfection in modelling. While it is a laudable goal in my opinion, it has to come with an understanding that it will never truly be achievable. But we should not fall into the trap of giving up on the whole idea simply because the achievement of the complete goal is not possible. The value in perfectionism comes not from achieving it, but from the advances in our modelling and practice that pursuing it brings to us. Now, my opinion of a perfect podcast is that it never outlasts its listeners' patience. So I'm going to end this show by thanking you for listening, and our sponsors, Anish and Scale Model Challenge, and our patrons without whom this show would not happen. Thank you all. If you'd like to read a transcript of this show in blog form, illustrated with some of the models and modelers we've spoken about in the interview, you can find it at modelphilosopher.com. Remember, there is a Model Philosopher Lounge group on Facebook you can join to take part in the conversations, or you can write to me at info@insidethearmour.com. Also, I've got a bunch of new stuff out for ITA 3 at the moment, so do head on over to insidethearmour.com to have a look at those. If you're in the EU or the rest of the world, you can also buy them from Hannants. That's HANNANTS.co.uk. Hannants will be able to send it to you wherever you live in the world. Thank you for listening, and take care.